Dr. Rilara stood in the center of the bright white research chamber, her long blue fingers moving carefully across the glowing console. She was one of the best scientists of her kind, an Andurian, a race that valued logic, reason, and control above all else. Emotions were seen as weakness. Curiosity was their only passion, and today, that curiosity was fixed on one strange creature, the human male sitting quietly on the observation bed. The human's name was Elias Ward. He had come from a small blue planet called Earth, one of the newest members of the Galactic Union. To Rilara, he looked different. His skin was warm in color, his hair dark, and his eyes carried something she could not describe. They seemed alive in a way that unsettled her calm heart. Her translator unit clicked as she spoke. Subject: human male. Designation: Elias Ward. Preparing for biological and emotional response testing. Elias gave a small smirk. You can just call me Elias, Doc, makes things less scary. Rilara blinked in confusion. Scary? This is a controlled environment. Fear is unnecessary. He chuckled softly. You've never had cold metal tools aimed at you before, huh? She tilted her head. I do not understand your humor. He sighed, smiling wider. Guess that makes two of us. Rilara found herself staring at that smile longer than she should have. Humans were not known for their discipline, but there was something in their faces, in their expressions, that carried warmth. It was strange. Beautiful, even. She began her work scanning his body with her instruments. The screens filled with complex patterns of human biology, heart rate, muscle tension, brainwave movement. But what surprised her most was how fast everything changed with his mood. When he laughed, his heart quickened. When he looked at her, his breathing slowed. His body reacted constantly, as if tied to every feeling. Your biology is unstable, she murmured. Every emotion creates a reaction in your body. That's how we work, Elias said. When we're happy, sad, angry, our bodies show it. Rilara frowned, her head turning slightly. That is inefficient. Such instability would make your species weak. Elias shook his head gently. No, Doc, it makes us human. The way he said that word, human, carried pride, as if it was something powerful, something sacred. Rilara didn't understand why. Yet deep inside, a question began to form. Could emotions really be more than chaos? Could they be a kind of strength? She wrote down her first observation. Human emotional response creates rapid biological variation. Subject displays control despite internal instability. Elias leaned back, looking up at the bright ceiling. So, Doc, what's next? Gonna poke my brain? She looked at him seriously. If necessary. He laughed loudly, and the sound filled the cold room with a strange warmth. It made Rilara's chest tighten in a way she had never felt before. She quickly looked away, pretending to check her data. Why do you laugh? She asked after a moment. Even when facing discomfort, you react with humor. Elias smiled softly. Because sometimes laughter is all we've got. It helps us survive. That answer stayed in her mind longer than the data on her screens. The Andurians had conquered fear by removing emotion. Yet this fragile creature sitting before her, this human, had conquered fear by feeling it and laughing anyway. When the test ended, Rilara turned off her devices, but her thoughts refused to settle. She looked at Elias one last time before leaving the room. You are unusual, Elias Ward, he grinned. Takes one to know one, Doc. Her lips twitched, though she didn't know why. For the first time in her long scientific life, Dr. Rilara felt something she could not measure, something warm, soft and frightening all at once. She left the chamber quietly, unaware that this small beginning, this single meeting, would soon change everything she believed about life, emotion, and what it truly meant to be alive. The next morning, Dr. Rilara arrived early to the laboratory. She told herself it was only for research, not because her thoughts had stayed on the human all night. Yet deep inside, she knew something about him had disturbed the calm logic that guided her life. Elias Ward sat on the same examination bed, his hands folded, humming a soft tune from his home world. The sound was gentle, filled with life and something Rilara could not name. It made her feel lighter. What are you doing? She asked. He smiled. Singing. It's an old Earth song. Helps me relax. Singing? She repeated, confused. You emit sound for comfort? Yeah, he said, still smiling. It's a human thing. Rilara didn't understand. For her species, sound was only for communication, but for humans it seemed sound carried emotion. And once again she saw how strange and fascinating they were. She began her next experiment, adjusting the sensors to measure deeper physical reactions. Her goal today was to study how human emotion affected blood flow and muscle control. She asked him to recall memories that made him happy, sad, and embarrassed. When she mentioned embarrassment, Elias laughed nervously. "You're really making me earn this research bonus, Doc." Her glowing eyes narrowed slightly. "Please focus. I need accurate readings." He nodded and the tests began. First, she asked him to think of something joyful. Immediately, his heart rate increased and his brain activity flared in bright patterns. Then sadness, his pulse slowed, his breathing deepened. Every emotion brought a wave of biological changes. But when he laughed again, one reading made her stop. Something unusual was happening in the lower region of his body. The energy scan spiked sharply. Rilara looked at the monitor, puzzled. "Elias," she said slowly, "there appears to be rapid expansion of tissue in your lower region. Are you in distress?" He froze. No, Doc, that's normal." "Normal?" she asked, confused. "Your body is expanding without external stimulus. Is it a defense mechanism?" He covered his face with his hands. "Not exactly, it's a natural human reaction. Happens when we're emotionally stimulated." "Stimulated?" she repeated, tilting her head. "You mean your emotions can cause physical growth?" He groaned softly. "You could say that, yeah." Rilara blinked, fascinated. She leaned closer, observing the data. "Incredible. So emotion directly influences physical state." "This is a breakthrough!" Elias looked away, cheeks red. "Can we please not call it a breakthrough?" But Rilara wasn't embarrassed. She was amazed. "Your species is extraordinary," she whispered. "You are the only life form I have studied where emotion transforms the body instantly." "Yeah, well," he muttered. "It's not something we brag about." She ignored his discomfort and recorded her findings quickly. Human emotional energy causes measurable growth and pressure variations, possible adaptive advantage for reproduction or bonding. When she looked back up, Elias was still hiding his face and something inside her softened. For the first time she realized humans felt shame, a feeling Andurians had never known. "You are ashamed of a natural reaction?" she asked quietly. He sighed. "Yeah, sometimes we are. Humans are complicated that way." Rilara studied him in silence. "I think your complications are what make you beautiful," she said softly, almost without realizing it. Elias blinked and looked up, surprised. "Did you just call me beautiful?" She hesitated. "Scientifically speaking," he chuckled, his embarrassment slowly fading. "Sure, Doc, scientifically." The room grew quiet again, except for the hum of machines. But inside Rilara, something had changed. She began to see beyond the data, beyond the flesh and numbers. She saw a being full of feeling, one who could laugh even in discomfort and still smile despite confusion. That night, as Rilara reviewed her reports, she could not focus. Every line of text reminded her of Elias's laughter, his kindness, and his strange warmth. For the first time in her long career, she felt something she could not name. It was not curiosity. It was not logic. It was something far more dangerous for an Andurian scientist: emotion. Days passed, and Dr. Rilara found herself spending more and more time with Elias Ward. What began as scientific study slowly became something different, something she could not easily explain. Her research was supposed to be about human biology, but now every conversation, every look, and every small laugh they shared made her feel something she had never felt before. The Andurians were logical beings. They didn't have emotions, didn't laugh, didn't cry. But around this human, Rilara's control began to crumble. She found herself waiting eagerly for the next test session. She started noticing small things, how his voice softened when he spoke to her, how his eyes brightened when she smiled by accident. That day, Rilara began a new experiment, one focused on emotional response rather than physical. "Elias," she said softly, "I would like to study how emotions affect your thoughts. Can you tell me about something that made you feel joy?" Elias leaned back, thinking. "Joy, huh? Well, when I was a kid, my dad took me to see the ocean for the first time. I remember standing there, feeling the wind on my face and thinking how big everything was. It made me feel small but also free." Rilara listened carefully. The data on her screen showed an increase in heart rate and neural activity, but she was focused on his expression, not the numbers. His voice carried warmth and a strange softness. She realized that emotions were not just chemical reactions, they were life itself. Do Endurians not feel things like that? He asked suddenly. Rillara hesitated. We have sensations, but not emotion. We do not laugh or cry. We function with logic alone. Elias looked sad. That sounds lonely. She frowned. Lonely? It means being alone on the inside, he explained gently. Like you have no one to share what's in your heart. His words struck her deeply. All her life, Rillara had believed logic was purity, that emotion was weakness. But now, sitting in front of this human who smiled through pain and laughed through fear, she wondered if her kind had been wrong all along. Later, she tried to focus on her notes, but her mind wouldn't settle. Why do humans feel so much? Why does emotion make them stronger, not weaker? When she looked at Elias again, he was watching her quietly. You're thinking too hard, Doc, he said. You've got that little wrinkle between your eyes. I do not have wrinkles, she said quickly, touching her forehead. He laughed softly. It's cute. Cute? She repeated, confused again. It means pleasant to look at. Rilara's glow flickered faintly. For the first time, she felt warmth rise inside her. Her chest tightened in a strange, unfamiliar way. She wasn't sure if it was fear or something else. That evening, after the tests ended, Elias sat beside her instead of returning to his cell. You know, he said, looking at the stars through the glass wall. You could learn to feel, Doc. It's not as scary as it sounds. Rillara looked at him, puzzled. Feel? How can I learn what is not in my nature? He smiled. Start small. Notice the way the stars look, the way music sounds, or how your chest feels when someone smiles at you. Her eyes softened. I will try, and she did. That night, she sat in the quiet lab staring at the stars Elias had mentioned. They looked different now, brighter, more alive. For the first time, she realized that she could feel something close to wonder. In her report that night, she didn't write about biology or hormones. Instead, she wrote something simple. Humans are not just bodies of flesh. They are hearts that think and minds that feel. Their emotions are not a weakness. They are the core of their being. When she finished, she closed her eyes and whispered softly to herself, Maybe I am learning to be human too. And though she didn't understand it yet, something beautiful had begun to grow inside her. A feeling that would soon test everything she believed about science, loyalty and love. Dr. Rillara had never broken a rule in her life. Every Andurian scientist lived by one law, never let emotion interfere with research. But now every time she looked at Elias Ward, she felt that law slipping away like sand through her fingers. It had been weeks since the first test, and her once cold laboratory now felt different. The walls didn't seem so lifeless anymore. The air felt warmer, softer. Sometimes she even caught herself smiling when Elias entered the room. She would quickly hide it, pretending to adjust her instruments. But deep inside, something had already changed. One day, while she was preparing a neural scan, her superior, Commander Vektar, entered the lab. His silver armor gleamed and his expression was sharp as ice. Dr. Rillara, he said sternly, we have reviewed your recent reports. They lack focus. You speak of feelings, emotions, and connections. Where is your scientific objectivity? Rillara straightened. Commander, emotions are part of human biology. Understanding them is key to understanding their nature. Vektar's voice turned cold. We study the body, not the soul. Do not lose yourself to their chaos. Before she could answer, Elias spoke softly from the observation bed. Maybe what you call chaos is just life, Commander. The alien commander turned sharply toward him. You will remain silent, human. You are here to be studied, not heard. Something inside Rillara snapped. Enough, she said quietly. He has the right to speak. The room fell silent. Even Elias looked surprised. No Andurian had ever spoken back to a superior before. Vektar's eyes narrowed. You are letting this creature infect your mind. I warn you, Rillara. Terminate this project before it terminates you. He left without another word, leaving the room heavy with tension. Elias looked at her carefully. You didn't have to stand up for me like that. She turned away, pretending to check the scanner. I did not do it for you. I did it for truth. But even as she said the words, she knew they weren't true. She had done it because the thought of Elias being silenced, of him being treated like nothing, hurt her in a way she couldn't explain. Later that evening, she sat alone in her lab. Her hands trembled slightly as she wrote her report. Subject continues to show emotional and physiological stability. However, researchers' reactions remain unpredictable. She stared at that line for a long time. Researchers' reactions remain unpredictable. That researcher was her. When Elias came back for the next session, she couldn't meet his eyes. But he noticed her silence. "Doc," he said softly, "you okay?" She looked up slowly. "Why do you care?" "Because you look sad," he said simply. Sad. Another word from the human language that didn't exist in hers. Yet she understood it perfectly. "I am conflicted," she admitted. "I was told to end this project. They believe I am becoming emotional." Elias smiled gently. "They're not wrong." Her eyes widened slightly. "You think I have lost control?" He shook his head. "No, I think you finally found your heart." His words struck her like light. She turned away quickly, but a single tear formed in her eye. A clear, shining drop of something she had never produced before. She stared at it, fascinated and frightened. "What is happening to me?" she whispered. Elias smiled softly. "That's what feeling looks like, Doc. Welcome to being human." For a moment she didn't move. She just looked at the tear on her finger, amazed that something so small could hold so much meaning. That night she stood by the large window of her lab, staring at the stars. Her reflection looked different now. Her eyes warmer, her expression softer. She whispered quietly to herself, "Maybe they were wrong. Maybe emotions are not weakness. Maybe they are evolution." And as the stars shimmered above her, Dr. Rilara realized something dangerous and beautiful. She no longer saw Elias as a test subject. She saw him as something much more, something her world would never understand. The laboratory, once filled with quiet hums of machines, now echoed with alarms. Red lights flashed across the walls as the door burst open. Guards in silver armor rushed in, their weapons glowing faintly. Dr. Rilara stood frozen beside the control console, her heart pounding in her chest, a feeling she once believed only humans could have. Across the room, Elias Ward sat inside the containment field, his face calm but his eyes full of understanding. He knew what was happening. Commander Vektar stepped forward, his voice sharp and cold. "Dr. Rilara, by order of the Andurian Council, this experiment is terminated. The human will be removed for dissection. You are to return to headquarters for reconditioning." Rilara's voice trembled. "Dissection? He is alive. He is not a sample." Vektar's tone hardened. "You've allowed emotions to blind your reason. This creature has infected your thoughts." Her mind raced. She knew Andurian law. Disobeying an order meant exile or death. But when she looked at Elias, she saw something no law could erase. Trust. He was watching her, not with fear, but with quiet belief that she wouldn't let harm come to him. For the first time in her life, logic didn't guide her choice, her heart did. She pressed a small control on her wristband. Instantly, the containment field around Elias flickered and dropped. The guards shouted in alarm. "Run!" she said. Elias didn't hesitate. He jumped off the bed and followed her through a back corridor. Sirens wailed. Metal doors locked and opened as Rilara used her clearance codes to lead them through hidden maintenance tunnels. "Rilara!" Elias gasped as they ran. "You're throwing away your life for me." She looked back, her glowing eyes soft but determined. "You gave me life first. I am only returning it." They reached a narrow airlock chamber leading to the ship bay. Outside, the stars shimmered like 1,000 silent witnesses. Rilara activated the small research shuttle, an old craft she used for sample transport. Before boarding, she turned to him. "Once we leave orbit, they will brand me a traitor. You can still go back. Tell them I forced you." Elias shook his head firmly. "Not a chance. You saved me. Now I'm saving you." For a moment, neither spoke. The world around them was chaos, but in that small second, everything felt quiet, like the universe had stopped just to watch them. She finally nodded and entered the shuttle. The engines roared to life, and within seconds, the small craft shot out into the cold void of space. From the main control screen, Rilara could see patrol ships moving in formation. They were being pursued. "They will catch us soon," she whispered. Elias looked at her calmly. "Then we better make this count." He took the co-pilot seat beside her, his hand steady. Rilara guided the shuttle toward the dark side of a nearby moon, using its gravity to mask their signal. The Andurian ships passed overhead, searching. When the scanners finally went silent, she exhaled deeply. Her hands shook as she turned to Elias. "We are safe for now." Elias leaned back, smiling faintly. "You're pretty good at breaking rules for someone who used to worship them." She looked at him, her lips trembling with a strange, warm smile. "Perhaps humans are not the only ones who can evolve." Silence filled the cabin. Outside, stars drifted like silver dust. For the first time, Rilara wasn't thinking of data or duty. She was thinking of a heartbeat, his and hers, echoing softly in the small ship. She whispered almost to herself, "I was told emotions would destroy me, but instead, they set me free." Elias looked at her, his eyes gentle. "That's what being human does, Doc. It makes you brave enough to feel." And as their shuttle disappeared into the deep unknown, the Andurian scientist who once studied emotions as a weakness finally understood their true power. Because in saving a human, she had discovered her own heart. The small shuttle drifted silently through the vast emptiness of space. Outside, stars stretched endlessly and planets glimmered like jewels. Inside, Dr. Rilara and Elias Ward sat quietly, their breaths the only sound, punctuated by the soft hum of the engines. For the first time, Rilara allowed herself to feel the magnitude of what had just happened. She had defied her species, broken the rules of the Andurian Council, and risked her life. Yet as she looked at Elias alive and smiling beside her, she realized it had been worth it. Every law she had followed, every rule she had obeyed, had never felt as meaningful as the choice she had made to protect him. Elias reached out, placing a human hand on hers. His touch was warm, comforting. "You're quiet," he said softly. "I am learning," she admitted. "Learning what it means to feel," he smiled gently. "It's not easy. Humans are messy. Our hearts are chaotic, but that's the point. Feelings make us alive." She studied him carefully. Alive. The word resonated differently now. It was no longer just about the body. It was about connection, emotion, and courage. For the first time, she understood that living wasn't merely breathing. It was experiencing, risking, and opening oneself to the unknown. Rilara's hand trembled slightly as she withdrew her sensors and data pads. They were useless now. What she needed could not be measured in charts or readings. What she needed was understanding, human understanding. "You know," Elias said quietly, "my world isn't perfect. There's pain, fear, and loss. But there's also joy, hope, and love. We survive because we care, because we risk, because we grow." She listened, fascinated. For Andurians, growth was controlled, predictable. But humans grew in ways that defied logic. They evolved through heart, not formula. It was beautiful. It was terrifying. "You have changed me," she whispered. "I cannot ignore it anymore." Elias looked at her, surprised. "Me?" "Yes," she said, her voice trembling. "Not only your biology, but your courage, your laughter, your very presence. You have awakened something in me I did not know existed." He smiled. A soft, understanding smile. That's what humans do. Sometimes without even trying, we touch lives. The shuttle passed a nearby star, casting golden light across the cabin. For a moment, silence held them both, a quiet peace between two very different beings. And yet, Rilara felt something new, something almost painful. Hope. "Do you ever think," she asked quietly, "that humans are stronger than we thought?" Elias chuckled softly. "We're stronger than we seem. Maybe that's why you're here, because you finally see it." She looked away, overwhelmed. She had spent centuries believing in logic, in control, in reason alone. Yet now, in the presence of one human, she felt the truth. Emotion was strength. Connection was power. Love was evolution. Elias reached over again, squeezing her hand. "You don't have to understand everything right away. Feeling is messy, confusing, sometimes it hurts. But it's also the only thing worth risking." Rilara nodded slowly, letting his words sink in. She could feel her chest tighten, her heart, or what she now understood to be like one, beating faster. She had no words for it yet. No formula could explain it. But it was real. For the first time in her long Andurian life, she laughed. Not a sound calculated to convey meaning. Not a sound of data or observation. It was pure, messy human laughter. Elias laughed with her, a warm, steady sound that echoed through the small cabin. And in that moment, something shifted inside her. She realized that the real discovery of her life wasn't the human biology she had been sent to study. It was the human heart itself. The shuttle drifted onward, leaving behind the world that sought to control them, and as the stars stretched infinitely ahead, Rilara understood that no law, no rule, and no fear could ever take away what she had gained. She whispered softly to Elias, "You have taught me more than any book, experiment, or lecture ever could. You have shown me life." Elias smiled, brushing a strand of hair from his face. "Then we'll keep learning together, Doc. That's what humans do. We grow, we survive, and sometimes we love." And for the first time, Dr. Rilara understood all at once humanity was not just a species to study. It was a force, a power, a heartbeat capable of shaking even the most logical minds. And she was no longer just a scientist. She was alive. Months had passed since Dr. Rilara and Elias Ward escaped the Andurian lab. They had found refuge on a quiet, uncharted planet at the edge of the galaxy. The world was small, covered in forests of silver-leafed trees and rivers that glowed faintly under the planet's twin moons. It was far from their homes, yet it felt like the first place either of them had truly belonged. Rilara stood on a hill, staring at the horizon. Her blue skin shimmered faintly under the moonlight, her eyes soft and thoughtful. She thought about how far she had come, from a scientist who measured emotion as a variable to an alien who now understood its meaning. She could feel it in every fiber of her being. Hope, fear, joy, and love, all mingled together like a current of energy she could not resist. Elias came up beside her, his hand brushing against hers. "You're quiet," he said. "I am thinking," she admitted. "About the council, about the laws, about us," he smiled gently. "Do you regret it?" She shook her head. "No, for the first time I understand life, and I understand humans, their strength. It's in their hearts, in their courage, in their ability to feel everything and still keep going. And you showed me all of that." He looked at her, his expression soft but firm. "Then we're lucky. Few get to feel that way." Rilara's gaze fell to the ground, a faint glow in her eyes. "I used to think emotions were weakness, but now I see they are evolution, growth, life itself. Your laughter, your courage, your kindness. It changed me, Elias. I am not who I was." He took her hand fully now, holding it between both of his. "And you changed me too," he said. "I thought I was just a test subject in your lab, a body to be studied. But you, your heart, your bravery, showed me that even in the darkest moments, someone can care enough to risk everything. You are extraordinary." Rilara felt warmth flood her chest. She had never expected such words from any being, let alone a human. Yet they felt true, real, like sunlight breaking through icy clouds. Together, they sat on the hill as the twin moons rose higher in the sky. The night was quiet, but it carried a kind of life Rilara had never known. She realized that she had not only learned about humans, she had become part of them in a sense. Their resilience, their love, their ability to grow from pain. It had touched her soul and reshaped her understanding of the universe. "I was shocked once," she whispered, "by your body, by the way you respond to emotions. But the real shock is how you've made me feel." Elias smiled, brushing a hand over her cheek. "It's funny, isn't it? You studied humans to understand biology, but you ended up discovering hearts, mine and yours." Rilara leaned closer, resting her head against his shoulder. "I never thought a human could teach me so much. About courage, about living, about love." He wrapped his arm around her, holding her close. "We humans, we surprise even ourselves sometimes. And we survive because we care, because we risk, because we grow." The stars glittered above them, endless and infinite. The Andurian laws, the council, the warnings, they all seemed distant now, like whispers from another life. In this quiet moment, Rilara understood what mattered: connection, choice, and the courage to follow the heart. As she looked at Elias, she felt something undeniable. Strength, warmth, and life all flowing through her. Humanity was not just a species to study. It was a force, and together they were proof that even the coldest minds could be touched, changed, and awakened by the human spirit. "Thank you," she whispered, "for teaching me to feel, for teaching me to live." Elias kissed her forehead gently. "No, thank you. For showing me that even an alien heart can grow, And under the twin moons on a quiet planet at the edge of the galaxy, an alien and a human sat together. Their hearts beat differently yet in harmony. Together they had discovered the true meaning of life, courage, growth, and the unstoppable power of the heart. And somewhere in the stars above, the universe seemed to shine a little brighter, as if acknowledging that humanity, its spirit, its emotion, its love, had touched even the coldest heart and changed it forever. The end.